plaît, veuillez accueillir AnneMarie Dedek.
Picture a scientist, a pain researcher. She's at the top of her field, and she has just made a huge discovery. She found a mechanism, this chain reaction that results in chronic pain. Now, this is really exciting, and she is going to spend the next 5 years studying this mechanism. Along the way, she's going to publish her work in the world's top journals along with her team. This exciting research is just so exciting, and it's going to inspire her to spark a collaboration with a pharmaceutical partner to develop a drug that's going to target the pathway that she discovered. It's going to take a couple years because in science, as anyone who does research here knows, everything takes longer than you expect. But along with her pharmaceutical partner, she finds that the drug that they developed works very well and is safe and effective at modulating pain in their animal models. And this is fantastic. So this now means that they can move forward with the next big step in this research. So now that she knows, she studied this mechanism for maybe 10 years, knows that it's safe, it's effective in our rat studies, we're ready for the next big step. And that's human clinical trials. And so the first stages of clinical trials in humans focus on making sure that the drug in question is safe. So again, this is going to take a couple years, as everything does, but our researcher in question gets results back. Good news. The drug is very well tolerated and it's safe. Now, the next phase. Is it effective to treat pain in the human clinical pain population? And this is where our researcher gets a little bit of bad news. The results show no effect, nothing in the clinical population. But how is this possible? Because, as I just told you, this researcher has spent more than a decade researching this pathway, researching this drug, sees it's effective in the animal model. So, what's going on? And let me just pause for a moment and tell you that this story is actually based on true events. And the researcher in question, who led the path in this field, actually went on to lay the foundation to the solution to the problem that they discovered. But back to the researcher that I was describing earlier. What went wrong in her research? Do you think maybe she made a mistake? But let me tell you that her research was very well designed. Her tools were cutting edge. Every element of her scientific process was rigorous and excellent. Maybe the problem wasn't with the initial study design, but maybe the issue is her model. Now, see, historically, basic science research, especially in the field of pain, has been conducted using male rodent models. But this is a bit of a problem because, well, the clinical pain population is made up of humans, and actually 2/3 of those humans are females. And it seems that something is getting lost in translation from these basic science male animal models into our human clinical population. So, what are we going to do? What we need is translational research, research that aims to connect these basic science rodent models with the human clinical population. The research team that I'm a part of has been using such translational approaches for the last few years. What we do, which is mostly actually using rodent models, we study nitty-gritty, tiny details of molecular mechanisms in the spinal cord. But at the same time, in parallel, we collect tissue from human organ donors. When a family consents to the donation of their loved one's organs for transplant, as well as tissue for donation to our research, I go into the operating room along with the help of a fantastic neurosurgeon, and we remove the spinal cord from the patient. This allows us this incredible opportunity because the cells in the spinal cord, for some short time, are still firing and communicating, almost as if the patient was still alive. And this gives us this window of opportunity where we can actually do models, these experiments that very closely parallel what we're able to do in our rodent studies. This gives us the valuable opportunity to be able to do these experiments in parallel and to make sure in early stages of our basic science research that the targets and the mechanisms that we're studying are actually applicable to our human clinical pain population, which is fantastic. The other thing that this approach allows us to do is to be able to study these mechanisms in both sexes, in males and females. And this is critically important because work from some of our fabulous colleagues, as well as some recent results from our research team as well, have found that there are fundamental differences in how males and females both develop and continue to maintain states of chronic pain. So therefore, it's critically important that we're not leaving anyone out, that we're studying both males and females. And our research team is doing that. We're studying both sexes in rats and both sexes in humans. So I did omit one really important factor, though. And I say this just in hopes of inspiring us all to do better in science, better in translational research, and better just to make sure that everybody is being seen and heard. And there's still a few factors missing in our translational research models. The first being that we have not yet begun to address potential differences that may exist amongst a clinical population across race. We also haven't yet begun to address differences that may exist in our non-binary spectrum of sex. But translational research is a very new field, and we still have work left to do to bring it up to speed and make it representative of our diverse clinical population. However, in recent years, we've made fabulous research and fabulous progress using these translational models. We're collecting and examining rodent and human spinal cord tissue, and we're running these experiments in parallel. This makes sure that what we're studying is relevant to the human clinical pain population. Using these techniques, we are aiming to make science more effective, more efficient, and better representative of the clinical pain population. And we hope to do this in aims of helping the millions out there suffering from chronic pain that are waiting for new, safe, and effective treatments for their disease. Thank you.